Hey everyone, thank you for joining. And once again, I'm back with the Web Healing Show. And today I've chosen a very interesting topic, from hypocrisy to authenticity. Hypocrisy means different things to different people, and it could be a simple lie or a big facade of having a multi-billionaire empire when they know that they are paupers eventually. It could be anything for people. Some people believe that if others wear wig or add colors or makeup, they're being hypocrites because they are trying to hide their age. Or some people believe that, saying what is not right is hypocrisy. Well, the idea and definitions are different. And let's admit the fact that all of us, sometime or the other, are hypocrites. For example, saying good morning when you don't even mean it, saying good night when you don't even mean it, or saying, how nice to see you. You look amazing. What have you done to your hair? They're looking great. I loved your dress. Oh, you seem to have reduced some weight. Or simply if somebody asks, how are you doing? Oh, I'm doing fine. Are you really doing fine? Is that so? No. We have been taught to say lies and pretend to be different than what we are, because if we remained truly, truly transparent, probably it would have become very difficult for us to live and grow up in the society. It requires courage to be who you are and very, very transparent and very much um, yourself. Now, you may put makeup, you may wear clothes to suit the occasion, you may put on smile, not always because you want to mask anything. So, any so called facade or any of those put on, or even the makeup or makeover, or even the mm, socially acceptable ways and behavior are not always hypocrisy. Hypocrisy is when your intent is to hide something within. You might be saying a truth, but by even expressing the truth, you are hiding some big fallacy. That could be hypocrisy too. Hypocrisy is when certain things are unacceptable to you and you try and demonstrate something else. Your relationships are not working, but when people are around, you try and behave as if everything is fantastic. You know you don't know it well, and yet you portray that you are a reservoir of knowledge. That could be hypocrisy because not knowing certain thing is not really acceptable to you. Yeah, there could be so many such incidents, and we all are, to some or the other extent, sometime or the other, have been hypocrites. My argument is, why would you wear clothes, or why would you ever even comb your hair? Why would you even add or wear a perfume? Why would you garnish your food? Why would you add colors and all those you know decorative stuff to your food? Not always you do to fool others or yourself, right? You sometimes do it because you really want the person around you, people around you, to be happy. You want yourself to be happy, and by adding some flavors, some colors, if you can be happy, that's not necessarily a hypocrisy as per me. Hypocrisy is deliberate attempt to hide or mask or misrepresent something. On the contrary, you can be authentic. Like, your authenticity can also have a flavor of hypocrisy. You know, you're not really authentic. And yet, by calling spade a spade, you're trying to show that you're being authentic? No, not necessary. You're actually showing up that you are very, very honest. But somewhere, some dishonesty is not acceptable to you. And there is an overcompensation of your so called authenticity. Now, who can decide whether you're a hypocrite or you're an authentic person? Who can decide? It's only you. You can cheat the whole world. You can say lies to the whole world. You can fool the whole world, but you can't do it for yourself or to your own self because you know what you're up to. So do not let anybody else judge. And why should you be authentic and why not hypocritic? Is because behind hypocrisy, there is an element of escapism, and what you escape from tend to follow you anyway. So you want to escape from rejection, but by being a hypocrite, people may perceive your non-authentic self. Okay. And by doing that, anyway, you are rejecting yourself. So you will invite others to reject you anyway. And in spite of all your best attempts to look good, be pleasing, be as per others' needs, whims, and fancies, you might still get rejected. So face all that you haven't been able to accept within you, and that will help you be your authentic self. You do not have to be like anyone. You do not have to compare yourself with anyone. You do not have to copy anyone. There is an amazing, brilliant self, and that's you. You've got to recognize that and be that. Now, that self, once accepted and embraced, can be decorated. That self can have a brilliant smile. That self can have ornaments. That self can have a little makeup and a little fragrance and lovely dresses. And yet, if that represents who you are truly, it will enhance your authenticity. For example, you are full of joy, and yellow, light yellow, lemon yellow is your favorite color, and you wear to demonstrate how bright and cheerful and how brilliant you're feeling today. That color will enhance your authenticity. So you can do the same thing what you've been doing, which appeared to be a facade or a lie. And yet, if it is resonating, if it is aligned to your authentic self, it will enhance your authenticity. Isn't that amazing? How does that start and how does that work out? Well, there are short term measures and long term measures. For short term measures, first of all, you can recite the R5 statements or the radical crystalline mind statements that I'm going to recite afterwards. Longer measures is to recognize all that is unacceptable in you. And unacceptable to whom? To your own self. Because the day you accept, the world will accept you anyway. And after that, face whatever is unacceptable till the time you learn to accept and embrace. Recognize who you are and recognize your uniqueness. Recognize your essence. Recognize your various expressions and enhance them. And that's how you move from hypocrisy to the authenticity. What if others are hypocrites? Well, you will only get affected if a part of you is still in some kind of hypocrisy. The day you come to terms with so-called hypocrisy, you will also be fine with others' hypocrisy. So rather than fighting against your hypocrisy so much, start working on your authenticity. The more authentic you start being, the more you will fall in love with you, and people will fall in love with you. And you will be that amazing and brilliant self that you've always been, but perhaps for some reason you did not recognize that fully. So, thank you for joining, and I hope this helps you in discovering your authentic self very, very fast. And even if you have discovered, this will give you a courage to remain your authentic self under all circumstances and with everyone around you. All the best. Let's now recite some of the radical crystalline mind statements. Why I'm saying radical crystalline mind statements? Because they're based on the book that I have authored, Radical Crystalline Mind. So if you do not understand why I'm saying these statements and how does it work and how can these kind of simple statements have such profound effects, well, go ahead and read the book and you will get the idea. All right, so close your eyes and focus on your breath. Breathe in through your nose and breathe out through your mouth. Breathe in and authenticity or courage to have authenticity. And breathe out your need for hypocrisy. Breathe in your authenticity and breathe out the hypocrisy. Switch over to normal breath now. And recite after me. I revive my hypocrisy. I recognize my hypocrisy. I realign my hypocrisy. I reorient my hypocrisy. I reposition my hypocrisy. I revive my need for hypocrisy. I recognize my need for hypocrisy. I realign my need for hypocrisy. I reorient my need for hypocrisy. I reposition my need for hypocrisy. I revive my self rejection. I recognize my self rejection. I realign my self rejection. I reorient my self rejection. I reposition my self rejection. I revive my fear of rejection. I recognize my fear of rejection. I realign my fear of rejection. I reorient my fear of rejection. I reposition my fear of rejection. I revive my need to hide some facts. I recognize my need to hide some facts. I realign my need to hide some facts. I reorient my need to hide some facts. I reposition my need to hide some facts. I revive my fear of facing the facts. I recognize my fear of facing the facts and the truth. I realign my fear of facing the facts and the truth. I reorient my fear of facing the facts and the truth. I reposition my fear of facing the facts and the truth. I revive my fear of disapproval. I recognize my fear of disapproval. I realign my fear of disapproval. I reorient my fear of disapproval. I reposition my fear of disapproval. I revive my need for approval. I recognize my need for approval. I realign my need for approval. I reorient my need for approval. I reposition my need for approval. I revive my self approval. I recognize my self approval. I realign my self approval. I reorient my self approval. I reposition my self approval. I revive my uniqueness. I recognize my uniqueness. I realign my uniqueness. I reorient my uniqueness. I reposition my uniqueness. I revive the acceptance of my uniqueness. I recognize the acceptance of my uniqueness. I realign the acceptance of my uniqueness. I reorient the acceptance of my uniqueness. I reposition the acceptance of my uniqueness. I revive my need to embrace my uniqueness. I recognize my need to embrace my uniqueness. I realign my need to embrace my uniqueness. I reorient my need to embrace my uniqueness. I reposition my need to embrace my uniqueness. I revive my need to cherish my unique qualities. I recognize my need to cherish my unique qualities. I realign my need to cherish my unique qualities. I reorient my need to cherish my unique qualities. I reposition my need to cherish my unique qualities. I revive my need to recognize my authentic self. I recognize my need to recognize my authentic self. I realign my need to recognize my authentic self. I reorient my need to recognize my authentic self. I reposition my need to recognize my authentic self. I revive my authentic self. I recognize my authentic self. I realign my authentic self. I reorient my authentic self. I reposition my authentic self. I revive my courage to be my authentic self. I recognize my courage to be my authentic self. I realign my courage to be my authentic self. I reorient my courage to be my authentic self. I reposition my courage to be my authentic self. I revive my courage to remain my authentic self. I recognize my courage to remain my authentic self. I realign my courage to remain my authentic self. I reorient my courage to remain my authentic self. I reposition my courage to remain my authentic self. I revive the authenticity. I recognize the authenticity. I realign the authenticity. I reposition the authenticity. I remain my authentic self. I safely remain my authentic self. I safely remain my authentic self. This is Aatmn Parmar with radical recitation. Keep reciting, keep listening, and stay tuned. Thank you for joining me. See you tomorrow at 6 p.m. India time. Thank you and namaste.